done? What came over me? Who am I? It was wonderful. I loved every minute of it.
What did I do? What did I do? What am I? It was great. I loved every second of it. Goldie Hawn has been the bright spot of American life for more than 50 years. The Hollywood starlet. She always laughs, shines and lights up the screen like no one else. Shadows are made by everything, even the greatest stars. Goldie's shadows even have names. Even though she's nice, she has a list, a quiet list, of stars who crossed her, treated her badly, or made her feel bad behind closed doors. Men who thought she was weak because she was kind. Men who found out the hard way that it didn't work. Some of them were co-stars who became mean when the cameras stopped running. Someone tried to flirt with her and got angry when she didn't go along with it. It wasn't until she left that some people thought she was just a pretty face. Goldie kept the stories to herself for a long time, but now that she is 79, the mask is off and the truth is coming out. She doesn't have to say their names directly because the tension has been there the whole time. In one case, it almost ruined the whole movie. The first name on her list, a famous comedian who turned the set of their funny movie into a battlefield. Chevy Chase is one. People really liked how Goldie Hawn and Chevy Chase were together in the movie Foul Play, which came out in 1978. They didn't see the chaos going on behind the curtain though. Sources say Chevy's behavior outside of work was anything but sweet. He was moody and unpredictable, and he always put down director Colin Higgins by making up lines on the spot, rejecting takes he didn't like, and making scenes less organized just for fun. He was already famous from Saturday Night Live, but his ego grew even bigger when the cameras stopped running. He would yell at team members who got in the way of his flow, get angry when Goldie made a joke, and insist on having the last word on almost all creative choices. Behind the scenes, what looked easy on TV was a slow-motion train wreck. Like any good boss, Goldie tried to keep things light. She told jokes, cheered everyone up, and calmed him down when he was upset. However, cracks began to show. A member of the team heard her telling a stylist, "He's not funny when the cameras stop rolling. He's mean." She wasn't making things up either. Crew members remember Chevy going on and on about how he was carrying the movie, making fun of Goldie's lines, and once refusing to shoot a scene until it was changed so he could say something funny. Adding to the story wasn't what he was doing on the spot. He messed it up to boost his own pride. The stress made it to a boiling point. By the last few weeks of filming, they hardly talked to each other unless they had to. Chevy was famous for his smug haughtiness and biting sarcasm. He is said to have made degrading comments about Goldie's flirty character and questioned her comedic skills, despite the fact that she had been one of Hollywood's most bankable and loved stars for almost a decade. He is said to have told a director, "She's lucky to be in my orbit." His disdain wasn't hidden. It leaked out of every look, sigh, and joke that made fun of her, like a smile on a bomb. Goldie didn't say anything in public. Few people knew how upset she was, but they say she never played the victim. She told her friends that a co-star had never treated her so badly. One helper said she started asking to practice alone in a sneaky way so she wouldn't have to be around Chevy's mean, condescending energy. What started out as a light comedy turned into an emotional minefield, and the crew had to walk on eggshells and pick sides in secret. There was no longer any joy or energy on set, and everyone was tired. What should have been the best part of their lives turned into a test of their endurance. An artist who does makeup said that everyone just wanted to get to the wrap party without yelling. On the other hand, Chevy seemed either unaware or, even worse, happy. Even before he did anything illegal, he was known for taking over scenes and putting down other actors. But this project made it official. People on the crew who had liked him at first quickly stopped liking him. A lighting tech afterwards said that he wasn't very smart. He picked on people, timed things. He also said that the set was like a country and everyone was like his court jesters. Even though the movie did well at the box office, Goldie wouldn't talk about sequels or working with other people again. Studios pushed her hard, offering money, fame, and even an Oscar. But she wouldn't even pick up the phone when they called. The only thing she told her agent was that she wasn't interested. She meant every word of that silence. Up to now, there have been no warm interviews, no nostalgic pictures, and no real photos of her with Chevy Chase. Just a deep split that won't go away. He was put on her personal blacklist and could never get off it. But who was the man after Chevy on that list? We'll just say he wasn't trying to hurt a movie. He was trying to get her to like him. Just to Warren Beatty. Back in the 1970s, Warren Beatty was more than just a movie star. He was strong. He was charming, sneaky, and always involved in gossip. He was famous for what he did off-screen as much as he was for his movies. He didn't go out with women. He chased them like they were prizes. He did look at Goldie Hawn at one point. She was pleased at first. Who wouldn't be? Big names in Hollywood could get you things. Beatty had a lot of it. He asked her to join him for lunch and dinner. Then he went to parties where his compliments were a bit too smooth and his hands stayed a bit too long. Goldie kept her cool, being polite but not upset. She was aware of the rules and didn't want to be a side character in the Beatty love story. She had seen other actors fall under his spell and then be thrown out like yesterday's news. She politely turned him down several times. That's when the charm broke. Warren wasn't used to being turned down, certainly not from someone he thought was weak. He liked it when his women did what he said and when no one could stop him from being powerful. People who know him well say that he began making cheap attacks behind closed doors. People in charge told each other that Goldie was unstable, too funny, and not serious enough for real work. He would roll his eyes if someone brought up her job in meetings and laugh off her name. He would also make fun of her in meetings by calling her names. A story you know. He put her down if he couldn't have her, and it worked. Doors began to close slowly and quietly. No meetings were held. She lost the script she was given. Guests were invited to important rooms. Gone. Warren didn't do one big thing to ruin her success. It was very Hollywood of him to use doubt, hints and well-placed words to get what he wanted. One producer said they remembered being told Goldie wasn't a good choice for a big part because she had too much baggage. Of course, the only thing that was brought was Beatty's hurt pride. Goldie knew what it was. Someone asked her if she would ever work with him and she said, "I don't mix business with power plays." That was all she ever said in public. But when they were alone, she was more direct. One of her former assistants remembered her saying, "He doesn't handle rejection. He punishes it. And he did it in a skilled surgical way without getting his hands dirty." People who were close to her knew the truth, but she never yelled in interviews or took part in rumors. She could only groan and look sideways when she heard Beatty's name. When studio executives brought up his name for possible co-starring parts, she would look them down and tell them not to bother her. That's not going to happen. That's what she'd say. There was no anger in her voice. It was sure, as if she were talking about a locked door whose key she had lost. A friend said she burned the whole book, not just some pages. Beatty tried to use the old card at a fancy award show many years later. He walked up to her and smiled like nothing had happened. Goldie smiled back, kept her cool, and did not say a word as she turned on her heel. A reporter a few feet away heard it all and said, "That smile could freeze hell." The next man on her list of bad guys, though, didn't try to win her over. He didn't talk about her behind her back. He tried to make her look bad right in front of the whole casting room. Number 3. Dustin Hoffman. The room was very quiet. There were only a few directors, a casting director, and 2 of Hollywood's biggest stars reading lines next to each other. Goldie Hawn was asked to try out for a high-profile drama, which was a rare and intentional change from the comedic parts she usually plays. She was ready, grounded, and ready to show what she could do. Dustin Hoffman was already going to be there. 2 big guys in the same room felt exciting at first. While they were reading, though, something changed. Hoffman stopped the scene in its tracks. He was known for his intense method style and mood swings. He cut her off in the middle and said, "You're not connecting." The room tightened up. He then smiled and said to the directors, "She's still acting like it's a sitcom." Goldie stopped moving. Some of the producers laughed uncomfortably, but others didn't. It wasn't clear if it was part of the bit. It wasn't. That was humiliation done with surgical accuracy. He wasn't there to work with us. He came to put down. Goldie was the subject of a live autopsy that was supposed to be a reading. She read the rest of it with clear eyes and a steady voice, but something inside her had changed. And it wasn't just shame, it was deception. She knew the difference between giving tough advice and sabotaging someone out of spite. That wasn't about ability, it was about being the best. She wasn't just sad when she left that room, she was done. The next day she quit the job without any thought. People who know her say she told her agent, "Won't fight to be taken seriously by men who already think I'm funny." She turned down several chances to get back together with him or test drive a different actor. It was very clear that she would never work with Dustin Hoffman again. She didn't have to. Not being there said more than any official comment could. It looked like no one in the business knew what happened, but people who were in that casting room did. Hoffman hadn't found a mistake. He had let himself be seen. It wasn't an attack. It was control that looked like skill. It wasn't acting in a style. It was misuse of the method. It wasn't about Goldie's ego getting hurt. It had to do with respect. They talked to someone years later and said, "In this business, some men forget they're not in charge of the women around them." People who knew her well knew exactly who that was meant for. She told no one but herself that the moment scared her, not because she lost a part, but because she started to doubt her own instincts for a split second. And that was the bigger lie for someone like Goldie. Hoffman didn't try to take over a scene for no reason. He tried to get rid of her from the ground up. He didn't see a classmate across from him. He looked at someone he could throw off for fun. He used Goldie as a prop in his speech and the interview as a stage. A close friend said Goldie wrote in her book for the first time in years when she got home that night. She wrote, "He tried to make me smaller. He can't do that." She didn't. On anyone else's terms, she never went back to that part of the business. She made her own path and sped up what she thought of as success. She showed that to be strong, you don't have to give up comedy. You had to take responsibility for it. If someone later asked her if she would follow up on another big lead, she would smile and say, "If the room is right." It was how she said everything but not much at the same time. What about the next name on her list? That one caught her off guard and changed the way she thought about comedy in general. Number 4. Bill Murray. He was an hour late for the first table read. He didn't say sorry or give an explanation. He just walked in loudly, made a rude joke about someone, and tipped his coffee over onto the script pages like they were cushions. Bill Murray was in early talks to co-star with Goldie Hawn in a late 1980s comedy. It would be a quirky studio project that would fit his natural charm. They seemed like a great match on paper. Goldie was the love of America. I thought Bill would be funny. But Goldie knew right away that something wasn't right about that first meeting. As the reading started, Murray did something he was known for. He completely went off script, making fun of the dialogue, missing beats, and turning important scenes into funny ones. He made faces. He laughed. He acted like the writing was an attack on his intelligence. The writers were stunned into silence as he rewrote whole parts on the spot, which made them feel like their work wasn't important. Goldie tried to keep things light at first, smiled for no reason. She had worked with improvisers before, but this was different. Murray then looked at her with a smirk and said, "Why don't you try acting like you've done drama before?" Men in the room laughed because they thought the men were being mean was funny. Goldie didn't laugh. During a break, she put down her script, stood up, and softly left. She didn't get angry. She didn't ask for changes. She didn't even yell. But her team called the producers the next day. She left. There was no press statement or leak of rumors. There was only a clear, unambiguous exit. There were rumors. A source said she told a friend that he thinks being unpredictable is brilliant. It seems like a lot of work. Someone else said that she told her agents to stay away from any future projects with comics who mix up disrespect with spontaneity. It wasn't just one bad joke. It was about a style. There was a whole culture of so-called brilliant guys who used their charm as a weapon and called it art. They dominated scenes, took all the attention, and left their female co-stars to fix their emotional problems. There was no time of peace, and there was no friendly talk years later. Goldie never talked about him and never looked back. More than once, studio heads pushed for a fix. She could still get a loan, and people were still calling him famous. But she always said the same thing. Not interested. The door wasn't slammed. The whole house was taken off her map. That set was the last straw for her. Goldie didn't just leave the movie. She started to say no to a lot of different jobs. Don't make any more buddy comedies with tough guys. There would be no more scenes where she had to smile while being teased or pushed around. He tried to be nice, say he was just being Bill, and say sorry behind closed doors, but it was always too late. She was done. She began to say no more often, and she didn't say it softly or to say sorry. In an interview, she was asked why she turned down so many comedies with men in the lead roles in the late 1980s and early 1990s. She gave that knowing smile and said, "I chose peace." Goldie's idea of peace was that she would never have to watch over another grown-up man-child on set again. But if Bill Murray was a wild mix of ego and emotion, the next man she met was colder, more calculated, and more cutting. It happened at a charity dinner she will never forget. 5. Sean Penn. Tonight was going to be a good time. A well-known charity event in Malibu that was packed with famous people, big names in the business, and cameras everywhere. Goldie Hawn was asked to give a short speech about mindfulness and mental health, which was a very important subject for her. She wasn't there to promote a movie or sell a business. She wrote something honest for days. There was no self-promotion. It was heart. But Sean Penn, who was sitting a few tables away, was already making a scene by rolling his eyes, sighing loudly, and moving around in his seat like a bored teen, all before she even got to the stage. Later, more than one friend said they heard him mutter under his breath, "Another health message from a famous person?" Some people laughed. A lot of them didn't know what to do. People who liked and respected Goldie kept quiet because they felt bad. The others did what Penn did and pretended his sarcasm was funny. Many people cheered when she finished her message, which was kind and vulnerable. Penn leaned back in his chair and laughed so loudly that people at several tables could hear him. He told her to keep laughing. Goldie didn't move. There was a smile on her face as she raised her glass and left early. But the people who were closest to her knew she was really angry, not just acting angry. She felt disgusted but restrained, not because her pride was hurt but because someone had casually put down something she really believed in and shared with all sincerity. This person thought his cynicism was more important than her hope. He was known for his tortured revolt and couldn't understand that being weak could also be a strength. At home she cried, but not because she was hurt. Instead, she cried because she was so tired of being angry. "It's been my whole career,"
she allegedly said, and men who don't know what the hell I stand for still make me laugh. There was a new line she set that night. It's not okay to do interviews or join events with Sean Penn, and you can't even air kiss across a room. Later, when asked about him, she smiled and gave a short answer. Not my power. In private, she was more direct. She told her friends, you can be an activist without stepping on someone else's mission. Penn had been strong all along. In a mean way, his mood swings were good material for tabloids, and his anger was almost like a show. The directors said it was love. Goldie saw something else, cruelty that looked like commitment. Goldie felt it in a different way. It wasn't a fight or a moment. That never happened because they weren't close enough. They fired her in front of everyone, and the crack it made was something she never fixed. After that night, she was very picky about the places she went. She had been kind for many years, but now she wanted more. More care, more respect, and more thought. No more rooms with men who liked putting other people down to make themselves feel bigger, and when they ran into each other again at parties for common friends or award shows, she didn't play the game. He looked at her with blank politeness when she looked at him, and she always left early. But what about the last name on her list? That one was different. He wasn't a co-star, a friend, or even a foe. He lived in Hollywood and was known as a gentleman. He also made her wonder if old-fashioned respect ever really did apply to people like her. 6. Kirk Douglas. Goldie Hawn always paid respect to history. There were rooms in her house that had been built by giants, and she worked under the bright glow of names that made Hollywood what it is today. And Kirk Douglas's name stood out more than most. Love and respect are different, though. Behind the scenes, Goldie felt the weight of what those stories often stood for. She never spoke badly about him in public. That wasn't her style. But people who know her well say Douglas made her very upset. For no clear reason, but because he made her feel small all the time. Beautiful, not acceptable. Douglas would greet her at events for her business with fake charm. Old-fashioned actions like hand kisses, long winks, and comments about how she looks that are wrapped in a velvety air of superiority. Some saw it as bravery out of the blue. It was too tight for Goldie. A friend said she told him, he talks to me like I'm still the blonde in a bikini scene. I also got an Oscar. There was no one insult or moment of chaos. It was more subtle than that. The constant interruptions during panels, the way her ideas were brushed off in serious talks, and the way she was introduced as beautiful Miss Hawn, while other people were called visionaries. She told me once that you can be first on the call sheet and still feel like the decoration. It wasn't meant to be mean. The conversation was about how deeply some men had been taught to only see a woman's beauty when she was around. That way of letting someone go doesn't hurt. It leaves echoes that Goldie heard for years. She kept good business relationships with his son Michael Douglas, whom she praised for being kind and respectful in today's world. But Kirk was still a thing of the past for her, a memory of a Hollywood that never saw past her smile. No matter how many scripts she rewrote, or how hard she fought for and got artistic freedom, one producer remembered that she left a round table after Douglas talked over her 3 times in 5 minutes. She allegedly said, "I've said what I need to say," and then she left the room calmly. Even now, Goldie doesn't talk about him much. It's not out of fear or politeness. She says, some men don't deserve a second act in your memory. Hollywood didn't think much of Goldie Hawn, but her memory is one thing they did. It was something else that was hidden behind her laughs, her easygoing spontaneity, and her golden aura that made her famous. Iron, a strong will that has been honed by years of being laughed at, questioned, and criticized with a smile. Every joke that wasn't a joke was still fresh in her mind. Every eye roll that looks like input. Whenever she spoke up, she was cut off before she even began.